Hey guys, this is What If Benson was in Invincible Part 5 Season 1. Let's dive right into it. So we last left off after we began introduced to, Alan the Pyro Knight. Alan, the Pyro Knight kid, the half Pyro Knight kid from the last couple series, the last couple, episodes. We see that he is actually going to be doing some sort of event or something's going down in Japan against an OG Benton villain alongside the Guardians and a bunch of other stuff going on. But enough of that pretext. Just watch the last part if you want to know what really happened. But we last left off around the time of the end of season 1 episode 4. So let's begin with episode 5 of Invincible. So we start the story off and he introduces some sort of masked rock man taking down a bunch of thugs in some sort of warehouse and rocking all they shits. I mean, they are cooked. I mean, they are bombastically out of their league, or out of his league. He lets a little boy or a teenager that's in the gang or run away because he doesn't want to kill a kid. But we get switched back to Invincible, and Invincible's taking care of some no-name villain and rocking his shit. I mean, rocks the absolute snot out of his mouth. God damn. And so someone gets that on camera too. They replay that shit too. They go viral for that shit. But what happens after that, we see that Amber is waiting for Mark to pick her up since they're supposed to have some sort of date. But, Mark eventually shows up and brings cake. Now, Amber has some sort of mean mug on her face, not really, liking that Mark is late. But Mark cheers her up with some cake, and basically she's a little bit mad about it. But she kind of isn't really going for it, so she's really mad at Mark for not being here on time and kind of just being late most of the time. Now, I freaking hated Eve in Season 1. Oh my god, I hated her, bro. Damn, she was annoying as fuck, man. But anyways, we get switched away from their conversation and they kind of, make amends. But what happens is we see that this rock man is doing a bunch of crimes around the city, burning up buildings, taking down gangs, rival gangs, I guess, and a bunch of other crazy stuff. We see that civilians are always talking to him, saying that you're a monster, you're a villain, why are you doing this? And why are you letting him use you like this? After they confront him, the rock man comes to them and basically, says that it's a place down in Brooklyn that can help you out and gives them money for about 3 weeks worth of rent. I mean, helps these guys out after burning down their building, which I don't understand, but we'll understand later down in the episode. Let's dive right into it. So after that would have happened, we get switched back to Mark rocking an absolute villain down to the ground. I mean, he starts rocking these niggas down. I mean, damn, Mark is not letting anything pass. Now, after what happens, Mark makes so much collateral damage. I mean, Mark doesn't know how to use his own powers. He's causing a lot of collateral damage. He's breaking buildings down, kind of like how Ben was on his first couple years of being, Ben 10. Him breaking down buildings and him not really caring about collateral. Because most of the time when he was turning into an alien, he was on the road, so it was no use or need to think about collateral damage. But Mark is a superhero that can literally stop a train with his bare hands without any, and I mean none, residual pressure. I mean, this bro can cut through a freaking A train like it's Swiss cheese butter. And he's just running through buildings like no one else matters. Mark, we start to see how brutal and how crazy Mark's strength is and his surroundings and how he's pretty much breaking down these buildings. Like, he literally punched a villain through a literal building. A B tier level villain through a freaking building, causing a structural breakage, causing this family of 3 to almost get Swiss cheesed by their rubble. Mark saves them, but yet again, Mark just doesn't know when to just stop. He's literally destroying people's houses and buildings and literally saying, in a good day's work of a hero. Nigga, you're not a hero. You're not a fucking hero, bro. Like, you're being a villain in this situation. I'm not gonna hold you. But Mark still knew this whole thing, and he's not really, knowing the whole collateral damage, societal problems of him being a superhero. So Mark, we can switch back to Mark, and Mark quits his job at Big Burger or Big M or whatever the hell it's called. So he quits his job because he wants to become more like he wants to put his time more to being a hero. After that would have happened, we could switch back to, well, the Rock guy, and we learn that his name is Titan. And Titan basically is kind of a money or like a big muscle for some sort of big criminal organization or a big criminal in general in the city. Machine Head, basically. So what happens is he lets this guy go after he sees his guy's wallet. So knowing that this guy he's basically about to Swiss cheese on the pavement is a father, and he's a father too. He wants to sympathize with this guy, so he lets him live, but tells him to pay up his dues now, or else he'll come back and he won't be so nice. He walks away, and this guy starts to tweak out. But we can switch back to Mark yet again, but accompanied with Ben. Now, basically, Ben, Nolan, and Mark are kind of just talking, or maybe Ben is talking, and Nolan and Mark go on for training, and Ben is left behind. Through this time, or through this little transaction, Ben goes on his other separate ways, as Ben is trying to figure out what's going on, because, well, Mark is kind of acting strange. Not Mark, but Nolan's acting strange around Ben. Nolan walks away or flies away with Mark, and they start to do their little training, and everything really happens the same way. Now, without us really looking into Mark's, social life and his school life and everything that's happening right now, we can switch away from his character, and we can switch more onto Ben, because it's one of Ben's team was an Invincible. So we see that Ben is actually at Plumber's Academy talking to Alan. Alan is about to get ready for his trip down in Japan, as he's being tasked by the Plumber organization and also by the, I think, DDM or GDR or whatever. The government basically sees this organization and gets ready to go on a little bit of a trip alongside some Guardian members and some actual past Guardian members, or members that were supposed to be a part of the Guardians, but they just couldn't get up the tryouts. Now, what would happen is a few Plumber Academy members come, like Kevin 11 comes, Gwen comes, and a few others tag along down to Japan because it's some sort of event happening down there that needs their specific type of, touch. Now they go down there, and we can switch back to, well, Ben. Ben gives them a good, wave off, and they go on their separate ways, and Ben is getting ready for his whole entire arc. Now, Ben is walking around as he hears some sort of commotion happening in some sort of lab across the city. Ben transforms into Ray and flies down to the lab all across the city. He flies down and he finds himself toe-to-toe with, well, the Titan. Titan is there, and before he can even, start dropping these guards, Ben shows up. Ben tells Titan to stop right there, and that he's kind of out of his league here. Titan grabs the floor, or grabs a piece of pretty much technology off the floor, and chucks it straight towards, well, the guards. Before the guards can get, Swiss cheese or kebabbed, they start to run out of the way, and Titan starts to get his ass handed to him by Ben. Ben starts shooting lasers towards him, starts flying around him, grab him in the ground, throw him on the ground, literally just like manhandling him. So what happens is, well, Mark hears a commotion because he sees lasers in the sky going crazy and hears buildings getting crushed. Mark flies over there after dealing with a villain he was, handling while he was texting Amber. So he flies over there and tries to figure out what's happening, but Titan sees out of his league, since Invincible and Ben are on his ass. So he makes the right decision and dips out of there through the sewage, and Ben goes after him as a goop, but soon finds he's gone. He dips out, and he's able to get underneath Mark and Ben's noses and gets away pretty quickly before Ben can even turn into Wild Mutt and track his scent. And somehow his rock scent and his human scent is vastly different. So if Ben was able to track him down with Wild Mutt, he wouldn't be able to track him down very far. So after that whole debacle, we can switch back to Machine Head, and we can introduce Machine Head's character and how he sent, well, Titan there for the technology chip for his head. So he uses the chip, and it's some sort of game changer for him. It gives him some sort of technology that allows him to see multiple different outcomes and paths, and basically uses those scientific ways to predict the future and different outcomes. Probability, basically. And we all know we learn probability math in high school, and also I think some people even in preschool. But yeah, so what happens after that? Titan tells Machine Head that he's over and he's done, and he's done his last machine or his last mission for him. But Machine Head says, "You're done when I say you're done. I know where your family lives, and I can kill you anytime I want. So I don't know about you, but you work for me. You're my bitch." So Titan basically says that. Titan basically hears that, and well, Machine Head basically says something like that. It ain't really nothing crazy about it. That's what he says point blank. You're his bitch. He's his bitch. You know, Machine Head is his daddy, stuff like that. So basically, yeah. So Titan tries to fight Machine Head, or basically, uh, uh, I guess scare him on letting him go. But Machine Head just tells him that he isn't gonna go anywhere. We get switched back to Ben actually, because Mark's story hasn't changed too much from the original plot point so far. We see that Ben is trying to figure out what happened in the lab and trying to figure out what Titan stole. Some sort of probability technology chip that could allow the user to use probability functions to predict the future. That's how advanced the technology is. So, while Ben tries to figure out how he can track it with the help of, well, a Plumber Academy member called John. Now, John tries to help him out, and John is just a normal human. He just for plot, nothing crazy that he does. But John will be kind of a critical character in season 2 of this What If. Now, what happened is John basically tells him that there's no real way to track this unless you know exactly what it's going to be used for. So Ben has to figure out what it could be used for and how it can be, I guess you can be utilized. But Ben just pisses behind his head as he hears a couple commotion over the news in Japan and something's going down. We get switched back to the main sideways story of Alan and Kevin 11 and a few other plumber members. Kevin 11 and Alan are tasked with basically going down into the center of Japan and figuring out what's going down because of some sort of strange anomalies happening. Objects that are, well, completely stone coming to life, water turning into acid, and a bunch of other crazy anomalies or uh anomalies happening in Japan. Sorry, I can't talk for shit. So what happens is we see that, well, Mark is not Mark, but Alan is kind of confused on what's going down. So Alan and Kevin are kind of like Man in Black situation happening here, and they go down and try to figure out what's going on. They find themselves in a graveyard around Japan or the outskirts of Japan after they search a long while in the center of Japan, not finding much of anything. They find some duds and some weird sidekick people talking about how the end is coming or something like that is happening, and they're kind of confused, and Alan just chalks it up to them being insane. But Kevin says there's something going on around here, and magic does exist to an extent in this world. Magic is basically just ancient alien technology or alien energy that only a few people can use. And most people that are wizards or magic users in this world, half of them are actually magic users, and the other half are ancient, well, aliens, I guess. My girlfriend, she's one of them. As Ben or Alan is kind of confused on what are you talking about? Gwen's a sorcerer alien? What's going on here? Kevin just says, I'll explain it later, but for now we gotta figure out what's going on. Kevin starts to see signs around Japan and starts to see different things happening, different outcomes, different things that he doesn't really know how to explain, but it's starting to give him memories of an old foe he fought alongside Ben a few years back. And Ben fought against this guy when he was younger too. So Kevin is kind of suspicious and kind of thinks it's the same guy, but he doesn't know for sure. And he tries to figure out more about it as he knows it's one particular character that he knew when he was younger, when he was, well, a little bit of the Ben crew or Ben team alongside Uncle Max or Uncle Max and Grandpa Max, Gwen, him, and Ben. So he goes on his separate way and tells Alan to check out the other side of the. Well, actually, no. Just tell Alan to come with him because honestly, Alan, I ain't gonna hold you. You're not gonna be able to handle yourself by yourself in this situation, depending on who we're going up against. Because well, the GDA and the Plumber Academy had to come together to figure out what's going on. So they walk their separate ways, and we see that Alan and Kevin find themselves in some sort of, I guess, stripper club or club in general. They walk up in there, and Alan is kind of just passed off to be some sort of young-looking dude, and Alan's kind of confused on why they're in a strip club. But Kevin tells him that basically they're not here for the strippers; they're here for the sidekick weirdo in the back. They open the back, and they're basically by themselves, or Kevin slips some cash to the guy, and they walk into this little area drenched in the smell of the devil's lettuce, and they see a very familiar face, Charmcaster. We see our OG villain in the Ben 10 universe. Charmcaster basically brought down to being a pretty much hand reader for drunk idiots that stumble past the strip club in the back of the store or the back of the building. So we see that Charmcaster is a very accurate hand reader as well, knowing people's futures and a bunch of other stuff. So Kevin basically tells Charmcaster that we need to know where your dad is now. Charmcaster looks at Kevin saying, "Wow, I haven't seen you since that night." Kevin tells her that that was one time and it's not gonna happen again. Alan cuts a bit two and two together saying, hold on. You used to date Charmcaster before you dated Gwen? Kevin says we were off, okay? Me and Gwen had a break for a few years, and well, we were broken up for a few years, and I kind of found myself at a low point. Charmcaster pulled me out of it, and kind of got entangled in a little bit of magic. And Charmcaster butts in saying it was definitely a magical night. As Alan starts to lose his shit, my bro, are you for real right now? Oh, I knew you were freaky, but I didn't know you were this freaky. As Kevin tells him to shut up, but asks Charmcaster if she can help them. We need to know where Hex is because we don't know for sure if he's behind what's going on in Japan. Charmcaster says, well, it's not me, and I have heard tale about some sort of mythical creatures running around, statues turning into living things, water turning into acid, buildings turning into mush, a bunch of other collateral damage happening by the unexplained anomalons or anomalies. But she says that it isn't her, and her father is dead. The last time she knows, Hex died 2 years ago. It wasn't a big funeral, and most people didn't really know if he died or he didn't. He's faking his death a lot of times, but Charmcaster has to believe that this is really the time he dies. Like, she has full belief that Hex is dead for real this time. Now, well, Kevin doesn't believe that, as he did fake his death like 6 times before this time, and he doesn't believe it's the last time. Charmcaster says, well, every time before then he told me about it, and also I had a feeling he was still alive. But this time I really think he's gone. So I don't know about you guys, but I'll suggest you, I don't know, skedaddle, okay? So basically Charmcaster walks off and telling her bodyguards to get Kevin and Alan out of here. Kevin says, I'll be back, and if he's alive, you're going down. But before Kevin and Alan are escorted out, Charmcaster tells him that it might be a place that you can really know if he's dead or not. I couldn't open it, I wasn't strong enough, I didn't have enough magic. But with your help, maybe I could. So Kevin, Alan, and Charmcaster get in a car and make their way back down to the cemetery around Japan or the outskirts of Japan. They find themselves at the gravestone of Hex, his real name. Charmcaster looks at the gravestone and tells them that she needs something from his corpse. And Kevin tells her that you want us to dig up your dad's grave. Yeah. So Charmcaster tells them to chop, get going. As Alan uses his fire to start to basically burn the grass a little bit to make it a little bit easier. And Kevin absorbs some of the rubble from the gravestone and shaping his hands into shovels and starts to dig the grave out. They eventually find his pretty much grave and they open it, and surprise, surprise, no one's in there. Kevin is confused as hell, saying, "What in the what? You said he was dead." And John Carter said, "I thought he was." But yet again, you guys are super gullible to actually think I told you the truth. Charmcaster chuckles, and we see that the grave starts to fall into itself. And it starts to devour and basically envelop Kevin, since Kevin was the one that jumped down and opened the grave. Kevin starts to get buried alive, and Alan looks back at Charmcaster telling her to stop now as Alan flames on. Alan shoots a fireball towards Charmcaster as she dodges and shooting a huge blast of ice magic towards Alan, shooting him down to the ground and freezing him solid. Hex comes behind Charmcaster and tells her, "You did good, daughter," as she looks around and says, "Thank you, Daddy," as they walk off, and basically their plan is something extremely, and I mean extremely diabolical. But we get switched away from that, back to the main story, to, Mark, and Mark is training with his dad as he gets a text from Amber. He was supposed to meet up with Amber's family, have a little dinner with meet her mom for the first time. Bada bing, bada boom. Yeah, Mark was 2 hours late. Mark was 2 hours. Like, I get it being a superhero, but even I would be on time at least 30 minutes late. But god damn, 2 hours? Damn. Shit, man. You gotta prioritize your timing, bro. Goddamn. Mark was ass at prioritizing his time, for real. But what happens is Mark basically gets a little bit of a talk from Amber, and Amber tells him that she can't stand this and blah blah blah, saying that he needs to do better and that he tries to make up for being late at times, but it doesn't make it okay if you make all these gestures, these grand gestures right after doing something wrong, and you continue to keep on doing it. And honestly, I really did sympathize with Amber during this time. But when I found out she actually knew the whole time, I was so fucking pissed, bro. Oh my god! But what happens is we can switch back to Mark. Well, not Mark. We can switch to Mark getting a call from his dad telling him to get back home and if everything is okay or not, okay? Yeah, so before that happens, he also does kick a rock by accident and absolutely levels someone's roof. But we can switch back to Titan and we can introduce the Titan's family, his daughter, his wife, and everything. So yeah, Vanessa and Fiona, basically, his daughters or his baby girls, his wife and his daughter. So yeah, he brings ice cream to his daughter and all that stuff. His daughter does ask, who's that superhero that flies across, and they point to Invincible, and we get hit with the title card. Finally, we get hit with the title card. After that would happen, we can switch back to we can switch to actually Debbie. We can switch to Debbie and we can switch back to Dark Blood and everything going on around him. But enough of that. We can switch right back to the main other story. Pretty much, Alan. We can switch back to Alan. Alan is slowly melting his way out of the ice. It's a little bit harder since it's magical ice. It's ice basically made out of thin air, so it's a little bit more harder to melt through. But Alan's able to get past and get through it around 5 minutes later. After that would happen, we can switch back to, not back, but we can switch to Kevin fighting for his life. Kevin's been down underground for like 5 minutes straight without any oxygen because the ground he was submerged into was magically turned into freaking solid concrete. He's stuck in place. Alan starts to burn or melt the concrete just enough so he can basically drive his hands through the concrete like it's water and grab Kevin and pull him out. Kevin's able to heal through it, absorbing some energy from Alan, because Alan does give off his own radiation since he is kind of a sunbeam fire creature. So yeah, so he's able to heal himself, and they make their way back into the center of Japan, trying to get their hands on Charmcaster and Hex. They're doing some sort of ritual that allows them to siphon the energy off of the strongest beings around the globe. They're pretty simple. able to power themselves from the mass population. And since most people around the world and how superheroes are such the norm in this universe, they're pretty much everywhere. So what happens is, well, Alan and Kevin find them, trying to figure out what's going on. Before that happens, before they have to find them, they start to go around the city trying to figure out what's going on. They start to figure out what's going on, and they see pretty much a, well, palm reader in the middle of town square. And before they pass by them, the palm reader stops what she's doing and runs up to them, saying that they're in grave danger. She's starting to see the future and tells them that something's going down, something big is happening in the center of Japan, and they need to stop it now. They're confused, but Alan says that she might be actually a wizard too, or a magic user, so they make their way down in the center of Japan, trying to figure out what's happening. And they soon figure out something bad happening. They start to feel the air become cold. The area around them become desolate. It's a ghost town, basically. The humans, the people that were just around them, are gone. And they see the sky turn red. Somehow they've turned, or Hex and Charmcaster have turned Japan into an actual domain expansion. I mean, dude, they literally cut off Japan from the rest of the world for I don't even know how long. Alan and Kevin are confused on what the hell's going on, and they try to get their head back in the game, trying to figure out what's happening. So they go back to back, and they start to figure out that something's bad's happening. The water's gone cold. The fountains have become frozen. The floor has become desolate. I mean, everything around them has become lifeless. The glass starts to shatter as they hear a huge thud come towards them. As they see huge 7, 10 feet tall golems run towards them, powered by magic. Alan starts to use his fire to try to push them back, but they're fire resistant because, well, magic, and grabs Alan's face, and they chuck him into an actual building. Pretty much torpedoes him through an entire building, and basically levels 2 buildings with Alan's body. Alan falls to the ground and gets back up, being pretty damaged, but since Pyros don't really have bones, Alan's pretty good. But he does have a little bit of broken rubble on his rock part of his body. Alan gets back up and starts to use mass amounts of fire to make smoke screens and shoot multiple fire blasts towards this golem that's literally tracking him down and running through buildings, and pretty much demolishing this domain expansion city. What happens, we see that Kevin starts to fight back, turning into diamond from his pockets, as he just has some diamond in his pockets that he wasn't able to reach while he was being buried alive. And he starts to cut through the pretty much 10-foot tall golem like Swiss cheese. But the golem starts to use magic to reconstruct itself. Kevin starts to pretty much try to figure out how it's being powered and sees that it's a crystal gem in the center of his chest. Kevin jumps around the golem, dodging and weaving multiple attacks, having the golem stop and miss, trying to swat Kevin off of him, as Kevin uses his body and makes a huge mallet, crushing the diamond in the center of the golem's chest, taking the golem out. The golem falls down to the ground and turns into little tiny pieces of rubble, and, well, it's gone. So we get switched back to Alan. Damn, I'm sorry guys, I'm talking really too fast. But Alan starts to weave and dodge multiple attacks, trying to figure out how we can get past this alien, or past this golem. Magic is kind of a different situation for him, and he's never really went against magic. On top of him, his main power, fire, not working. So Alan tries to figure out a different approach, and starts to melt the concrete underneath them, turning it into tar, and starting to have the golem fall into it, being able to not, get out. Pretty much, Alan starts to use a new technique and absorbs the heat from the tar, turning it back into concrete and submerging the, golem in concrete. The golem cannot move, so it's, immobilized, and is taken down for now. Kevin and Alan make their way in the center of the domain expansion city of Japan, and there's a huge magical like beam of energy going up into the sky that's bright red. They go into the building and they find themselves completely surrounded by rock monsters. And, well, let's just say they start to fight for their lives. But enough of that story, we can switch back to the main story with Alan and Debbie. Alan and Debbie are talking a little bit as Debbie is kind of just trying to, right now, Debbie is very, I guess you can say, um, kind of against Nolan. She doesn't show it, but she is very suspicious of Nolan. She starts to look through Damien Darkblood's notebook and starts to look through it again and again and again. So, well, Debbie starts to look through his notebooks or look through his notepad and sees that it's something going on, the blood, the costume, the DNA on Nolan's suit that could give away what really happened to the Guardians of the Globe. We can switch back to Adam Eve's story with her parents and how horrendously horrible her dad is. Oh my god, I hate this nigga, and you're gonna hate him too when you see what he says in season 4 of Invincible. Oh my god. If you know what he says in the comics and what happens later down the line, just know he is a horrible dad. The stuff he says about Amber, the stuff he says about Eve's mother and her, oh my goodness. You don't even want to know what happens. But we can switch back to, Mark flying around and having a blast. Mark is flying and flying, eventually him finding his way to a nearby top building side and finding himself toe-to-toe or face-to-face with, Titan. He says that it's a little bit more letters in, Invincible, and he says, paint costs money and you have a long-ass name. So let's have to talk a little bit, as Mark thinks he's here to fight. And Mark is very immature. He doesn't really know, and he doesn't really see the error of his ways. He doesn't really know what's happening around the world besides his own little bubble of stopping crime and being kind of just a basic generic superhero. He doesn't really know what's really happening in the real world, where real people live, not just up in the sky. So Mark is about to fly off, but basically, he gets kind of guilt tripped into saying, you just fly away, not really caring what anybody else is going through. You just in your own little bubble, huh? Little rich suburban bitch. So basically what happens is, Titan tells him and kind of shows him around the city, showing him what's really going on and how bad the city is, how they're using garbage trucks to fill or to push drugs around the city. He burns down buildings to get the property tax from them. Machine Head, basically, an isotope, the teleportation dude, and basically tells Mark the entire inner workings of his criminalization and how horrible he makes the city in general. He also gets shown a little bit of personal life as, he gets dropped off at his school or at his daughter's school. And we see that Mark kind of sees this and wants to help out. He's a superhero. He's a superhero, for God's sake. He should want to help out. But before he goes and talks to his parents and his dad, he actually goes to Ben, asking Ben, basically, has he ever done anything like, street tier before? And Ben says, of course he has. Before he became like a big villain taking down guy, before he started to go around the galaxy stopping criminals and being basically a space cop, he stopped criminals, he stopped crime, he stopped bad guys, robberies, and even took down some gangs when he came back to, Earth after that long vacation he had on a different planet. Now, Ben doesn't want to tell Mark what he figured out because he does know something about the Veltrum Empire and how it's rumors about them being some sort of evil dictatorship. But he doesn't want to, talk to Mark just yet about it, since he doesn't want to scare Mark and he doesn't want Mark to go against him. But he does know eventually soon he will have to tell Mark what really is happening, and if his father isn't part of the Veltrum Empire, is he the reason the Guardians of the Globe are dead? But we see that, Ben is telling Mark that he saved a lot of people's lives, and low-key, there's a lot of cities in Chicago, a lot of cities around the world that need people like us to fight and go after the evil roots. And for a long time, he's trying to take down Machine Head, or Kevin has. Kevin's more of a street tier hero compared to me. Kevin goes after villains and kind of street tier type gangs by himself most of the time. But right now he's dealing with some Japan issue or some sort of bullshit in Japan. I don't know what's happening. But through that conversation, we can switch back to Japan and we can shown Alan getting his ass handed to him. God damn. Bro's getting his ass handed to him like shish kebab jelly meat. I mean, god damn. He's getting his ass flipped over and spanked, being called, "Hey, am I your daddy? Am I your daddy?" Like, he's literally getting absolutely manhandled by these rockers. Since they're literally made with no magical, support beam in their bodies. And on top of that, they're fireproof. So, and also they're not near any concrete. So, Alan is going to have to improvise. Alan starts to make smoke screens and shoot fireballs and tries to keep them at bay. As Kevin is starting to mow through them, he's still using his diamond form, but him starting to be weared out, since they are both being kind of overwhelmed by the mass amount of rock monsters. They eventually find themselves at the center of the building, where we see Hex is linked up to some sort of ancient rock. That's in some sort of ancient druid symbols on it. And they're trying to summon some sort of ancient being to Earth. A being similar to the power of Trigon from the DC universe. Basically, a ancient demon. Way more powerful than any of the likes of anybody would ever see. Kevin overhears this plan as they are able to get out of the sight of the putties or the rock monsters, and they start to ambush the team. Alan basically jumps Charmcaster and shoots a huge blast of fire towards her as she blocks it with a huge blast of water magic. Alan starts to dodge and weave out of the way as she uses some sort of wind magic to suffocate the water or suffocate the air around Alan, making him into his human form as he can't access his fire. Alan starts to dodge and weave out of the way faster and faster, but eventually he gets overwhelmed and starts to get jumped by the putties. And he's about to die. He's getting really just manhandled. Kevin uses his diamond ability to chuck a diamond scar or chuck a diamond into Hex's back. Hex gets sent flying through the archaic rock that he's hooked up to and breaks the rock, stopping the spell and sending them back into the real world and stopping the domain expansion. Hex is bleeding out and Charmcaster loses her shit and starts to absolutely obliterate the city. I mean, she starts to rip apart the city's floor and multiple casualties are made. About thousands of people are killed in Japan.
Hell no,
and
man.
Everybody is getting obliterated by this level of strength and feat of magic. Charmcaster shoots a huge lightning bolt towards Kevin, temporarily stopping Kevin's heart. Kevin falls onto the ground and is passed out, but before that happens, Gwen shows up. Gwen shoots a huge blast of energy towards Charmcaster, knocking her out cold, and eventually the rest of the members of the Guardians and the GDE, or the government CISO's organization, and also the DEG, I think is called, I don't know what it's called, but they show up, and also the plumbers show up. They mobilize and also stabilize Hex. So Hex is stabilized and he's put in some severe gel. Charmcaster is put into a gel specifically made for magic users, and they're put away and locked up forever. The city is in rubble and in ruin by this, but the city does have the heroes to thank, aka Kevin 11, Alan the Alien, or Alan, or pretty much Pyro, since he goes by Pyro. Alan goes by Pyro, his superhero name at least. And Alan is in critical condition since he did get jumped by literal concrete monsters without him being in his fire form. So he had some broken bones, some bruised, and some pretty much punctured arteries, but they were able to, the Plumber Academy was able to stabilize him. So they were able to help him. So after that would have happened, we can switch away from that story after that story is finished and ended off. And we can switch back to, well, Mark's story. After Mark would have talked to Ben and would have also talked to his family, and him bringing up Ben's whole, input on him saving people and him going more into street tier type of crimes, as Nolan kind of doesn't want Mark to go after these low life type of crimes. They're not really, these don't apply to them, as Nolan is kind of a big picture hero. He wants Mark to see the bigger picture, not to look and not to empathize with these creatures, the pit is simple. And Mark is kind of confused by this, saying that you're a hero. Why don't you want to save these people? Why don't you want to help out? And, well, no one just tells him that no. I said it, no. As Mark just doesn't understand, but he doesn't want to just let this happen. So Mark does it anyways. So what happens, we get switch back to the Guardians of the Globe, or the new team of the Guardians of the Globe, after we see that, well, their weak performance was due to Robot actually being out of the team for a little bit, as Robot wasn't a part of the group for now, like physically. He was okay. Robot was one of the members of the Guardians that was in Japan at the time, that last minute saved everybody. So pit simple. So yeah. So oh shit, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Okay. So what happened is Samson does get on the team about their poor performance and everything that happens, and how they did kind of do a lot of casualty, and a lot of shit did go down that wasn't planned. Now, Robot does show a little bit of a hologram format of what bad or what happened that was bad, and how much shit that did go wrong in the actual, fight. Now, also, I jumped over what happened and say one of Robot's drones was accompanying the Plumber Academy alongside their fight against, Hex and his magic and all other stuff, right? Okay, so yeah. So let's switch back to the story. So what happens is, well, Black Samson does get on the team about their poor performance and about how they can get people killed out there, and it was a bunch of casualties too. So Rex is kind of pissed off, but just walks off. What happens is Nolan does get a little bit pressed by, or pretty much Debbie presses Nolan and kind of confused on if she should trust Nolan or not. But Nolan consoles her, and that happens. We get switched back to not Amber, but we get switched back to Adam, Eve, and Mark talking. And Adam, or Eve, does tell her about basically everything, and how if you're serious about Amber, you should tell her who you are. And, well, Mark doesn't know for sure that he wants to tell his secret just yet. But Eve tells him that if you're really serious about Amber, tell her. And we can spread back to, Invincible wanting to help out Titan. So he flies down there and is accompanied by Ben, actually. Ben comes along, and Titan's kind of confused on why did you bring this, sucker here. As Ben basically says that I'm here to save and help out. Pretty much, Titan looks at him saying, well, I was going to look for you first, but Invincible was the only one I knew that I can get the attention of, since he was a little bit adolescent, As Ben chuckles a little bit, and Mark says, what are you guys talking about? You guys making fun of me now. Oh, I guess I just fly away, huh? As Ben just says chill and relax, as they're going to help him out. Now, Ben actually has stopped crime in here, and he has, for a long time, tried to take down Machine Head legally by the help of the, plumbers. But he hasn't been able to get Machine Head in a, legal bind. But with the help of Titan, Invincible, and them going up against Machine Head now more than ever, and with all the evidence Ben has against him, they can lock him up for a very, very long time. So, what happened is, well, with that whole debacle happening, with that whole situation going down, they would have made their move. Ben turning into Big Chill and flying headfirst alongside Mark and Titan. They burst in there and they confront Machine Head after taking down a few of their guards. Ben freezing some of them solid, even phasing them through the floor and making them pass out through the stress of them being phased to an actual concrete floor halfway. They're not like dead, but they're just stuck in the floor. They're just stuck. They have to get like a power drill or something to get them out. But Ben, Titan, and Mark put up a good fight, and eventually get to Machine Head and pretty much confront him. But Machine Head tells him that you guys really didn't think I accommodated for this. Now, I didn't think Ben Tennyson would be here in my humble abode, but things happen for a reason. Now, what would happen is we can switch back to a little bit of a side story of Robot actually tracking down the Munger twins and giving them a task. But we get switched away from that story. Now everything happened would have same everything the same would have happened. Debbie would have found Nolan's suits, and everything would have happened the same way. But we get switched to, well, Mark confronting Machine Head. Machine Head is basically telling him to back off and that you guys really shouldn't, try to jump the top criminal in this city. I've stayed and I've kept in my role, my status in this city for a long time. And you really think a kid in khakis and a red green shirt and some sort of fancy watch and a guy in black, blue, and yellow spandex and some sort of rock negro is gonna stop me? You got another thing coming, guys. As he presses the button, an isotope starts to teleport a crap ton of side-type villains and a bunch of other guys and hired armor or hired muscle to basically jump the team. So what happens is, yeah, that what happens. Now Ben did tip off the Guardians before they even stepped foot in the building. Ben is very strong, but with how much strength he has, there are villains that could give him a run for his money, or could give him a run for his money in the city. So yeah, but after they would have confronted him, he would have said that y'all really don't really know what you're up against. They start getting overwhelmed and basically point blank jumped. An electric dude, a rock dude, an electric dude, a cat, pretty much Galactic Mufasa shows up. Electric dude, a tongue swinging in a beanie, a lava guy, and they start jumping the snot out of Ben and Mark. And we see that, well, some sort of man in red and white is watching from afar, aka Nolan is just watching this shit happen. So what happens is, well, pretty much Mark is starting to get jumped by these guys, electrified to death. Man. Mark starts to tweak out and lose his shit. As this is all happening, we said he loses his shit and actually starts to go crazy. And he starts to absolutely manhandle through these, well, pretty much monsters. Or not monsters, he doesn't manhandle them, but he breaks through them as he fights alongside Ben, as Ben turns into Accelerate and starts to pretty much run around and pile drive multiple of these villains down to the ground. They start to run around and pretty much speed back to back to back, as we see that they get a little bit overwhelmed when Dr. Animo shows up in a huge mutated lizard with fire, basically a mutated dragon, to put it simple, starts to burn up the entire building, or not the building, but burns up the Ben, basically. As Ben starts to fly around, turning into jet ray, and trying to use his lasers to blast down this monster. We see that Dr. Eggmo tries to overwhelm them with multiple different mutated monsters of all shapes and different sizes. As Mark is starting to cut through these guys and pretty much bash their heads in, as he's telling Ben to get them out of here now. Ben is getting a little bit overwhelmed, but Ben transforms into a humongosaur and starts to fight back even more, starting to manhandle multiple of these creatures and knock out multiple of them, even punching holes through their chests. And he starts to get overwhelmed a little bit when he goes toe-to-toe with Battle Beast. Battle Beast shoots a huge, and I mean just chucks his baton or his warhammer straight towards Mark, and Mark gets sent flying. Ben grabs him before he can get sent out of the room, as Ben throws him straight towards Battle Beast, as Battle Beast gets torpedoed in the shoulder by Mark's body. Mark flies over, pretty much catching himself mid-air, as, well, Ben pile drives Battle Beast down to the ground, trying to take him on. Mark focuses on the other villains and tries to take him out, but what happens after he starts to one-man army these villains down to the ground, we see that, well, Battle Beast grabs him and chucks him straight to the ground, as he gets switched to, well, Basically, Ben on the ground, detransformed, knocked the shit out. I mean, he's knocked the fuck out, bro. We see that Battle Beast starts to absolutely manhandle Mark. I mean, he does him worse than Ben. I mean, god damn. He literally rearranges Ben's. He rearranges Mark's organs with his battle armor or his battle axe. I mean, goddamn. And that's way before. That's like not before, but that's a little bit after the Guardians of the Globe would have shown up, alongside Kevin actually showing up as well. Kevin and the Guardians of the Globe would have shown up, trying to fight back against the monsters, or not the monsters, but fight back against the monsters and the villains, and put up a pretty good fight alongside Kevin and Ben changing up the fight a little bit too. Now, what happened is Battle Beast would have started to go toe-to-toe with Ben again, as Ben would have been able to be woken up by Kevin. Kevin taking a little bit of juice from the Omnitrix, seeing that, well, Battle Beast is pretty freaking strong, and just taking just a little bit, as he tells Ben that he'll be okay this time. He knows how to control his thirst for power. So he absorbs just enough to make a hybrid of the original 10 from the original 10, Ben 10 TV show. Like, he has his original Kevin 11 transformation he has in the first, like, original 2000 show. So pretty much he starts to go toe to toe with Battle Beast, as Battle Beast starts to smile, saying, "You're a very strong foe," as I'm going to enjoy this fight. They start to go toe to toe, basically breaking off the building and making the building lose its integral strength. They start to fight a little bit more and more and more, and Battle Beast starts to overwhelm Kevin. Battle Beast starts to absolutely manhandle Kevin, starting to bite into his body, as Kevin starts to use his body or his strength to rip him down to the ground and start to pummel Battle Beast. Battle Beast grabs Kevin and chucks him down to the ground, knocking him out with a huge, and I mean a huge, drop kick straight to the noggin. God damn. Kevin is out for the count, de-transforming back into his human state, as we see that Ben gets back up, transforming into Ben Wolf, shooting a huge sonic blast towards Battle Beast, disorientating Battle Beast. Battle Beast and him go toe to toe, and Battle Beast starts to overwhelm Ben yet again. Ben starts to weave and dodge out of the way as he scratches pretty much, well, Battle Beast, as Battle Beast dodges and weaves more and more out of the way. Now, Battle Beast starts to manhandle the other heroes as they start to try to jump him. Black Samson gets jumped. Kevin gets jumped. Or not jumped, but they get basically bodied. Ray gets bodied as well. And everybody starts to get literally, like, humbled hella fast by, well, Battle Beast, except for Ben. As Ben tries to fight more and more, as he gets choked out and is about to get his neck snapped in Ben Wolf form, as his Omnitrix starts to tweak out and scans Battle Beast. The Omnitrix tries to turn Ben into Battle Beast's transformation to save his life, but before that happens, Mark jumps in, trying to fight back, throwing a huge punch towards Battle Beast, but that doesn't do shit but piss him off. Battle Beast throws Ben down to the ground and kicks, well, Mark back down into a crater he made earlier, and he says, "It's time for you to know true strength, boy," and rearranges Mark's organs with his battle axe. I mean, damn. Intergalactic Mufasa really gave Ben and Mark a back pushing. I mean, literally just blow they back out. God damn. Huh? So Battle Beast absolutely destroys Mark and is about to go in for another swing before Black Samson tries to look all cool and shit and fight Black Samson. You know, like I said earlier, Black Samson gets his shit rocked and gets his hands absolutely obliterated and thrown into an absolute floor. I mean, Black Samson gets treated like a sack of potatoes. Yet again, he's a regular dude, so he gets jumped. We see that Monster Girl tries to fight back as, well, she tries to go toe to toe, blow to blow with Battle Beast. And Battle Beast absolutely manhandles her. I mean, literally rearranges her whole entire skeleton, man. I mean, the amount of just... Battle Beast just humbles everybody in this room. What I want to know is how in the hell... What I want to know is how in the hell the Machine Head get his hands on Battle Beast's number, bro. Why would you recruit Battle Beast for this shit, man? Like, you really could have just recruited Battle Beast and nobody else, and the fight would have gone the exact same way, man. This is just unfair, bro. After what happened, and most of the villains and like pretty much Ben, Mark, Kevin, Titan, Monster Girl, Black Samson, all of them being absolutely humbled and destroyed. Ben is about to get walked up on by, well, Battle Beast, as Battle Beast says you're the only worthy adversary I see here. He licks his lips and say, I heard tales of the Omnitrix, and I'm here to feel all the rage, all the pain, all the power you can give me, boy. He's about to go in for a huge, pretty much attack as he sees more advancements or more stuff happening as Ben kicks him and basically tries to overwhelm him with, well, forearms. Forearms goes into toe with Battle Beast, but Battle Beast tells him that you're too weak, boy.
And if you're not gonna show your true strength to me, you have me wasting my time.
He breaks two of, well, Forearm's arms and kicks him down to the ground as Ben is disorientated and transforms back into his human form. And, well, what happens is, well, Ben in his human form, his ribs are snapped in place of the Forearm's extra arms. So, pretty much Ben starts to bleed out internally. So, eventually, Cecil's team shows up, pretty much does immediate medical care to Mark, Black Samson, Monster Girl. They also do take in custody of Machine Head. Machine Head finally goes down for his crimes. He literally just assaulted like 5 freaking heroes and hired a literal Viltrumite level hired gun. I mean, freaking Christ, bro. You did not need to do all that shit, man. You did not need to call Battle Beast up in this bitch. But what happens is Isotope, Titan, and his family actually all staged this from the beginning. And they take over Machine Head's organization. And now, well, Titan can give his daughter the life she deserves with all the money and all the riches she wants. So what happens is you get switched back to Donald. And Donald goes to the White Room and tries to figure out what's going on as they try to figure out a way to take on, well, Nolan, as they find no way to take him on. But they only have 2 candidates that can actually take him on, maybe in a fight. They have no weapons to use against him. Ben Tennyson, Kevin 11, and Mark Grayson. They're the top 3 cadets that could possibly give Nolan a run for his money or even kill him. So we end up the episode there. So I know it was a little bit of a long episode with a whole extra story that added on to the original plot. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.